The film opens with a mom and her young daughter heading to the mountains to gather mushrooms. The girl notices a boy she doesn't recognize, intrigued by the way he uses a mirror to catch sunlight. He guides her to a meadow full of beautiful mushrooms, but while exploring, the girl stumbles upon a human skeleton, causing her to scream in horror when she realizes she's standing on a grave. Soon after, the police show up with a photo of people who went missing in that area. The girl identifies the boy in the picture as Albert, who disappeared in 1975. The officer suggests it might be a ghost sighting, but the mother disagrees. She decides to share a story from 30 years ago, a tale that could make even the most doubtful minds question things. Back in the Alpine Mountain Village in 1975, local Sheriff Sebastian Roy rushes to the church and finds a priest hanging from the church tower. The doctor later confirms it as a suicide. The bishop, acknowledging the seriousness of the act, proposes bending the rules to give the priest a respectful 3-day funeral. Shortly following the funeral, a young girl grabs Sheriff Roy's attention, pointing out a newcomer in their village. The girl appears distressed, prompting Roy to assist her. He takes her first to Dr. Zing's office. The newcomer, showing interest in Roy, tries to kiss him. The doctor, upon examining her, confirms that her inability to speak isn't due to a physical impairment. However, she reacts strangely to light and is quick to become aggressive toward anyone she perceives as a threat. Zing suggests transferring her to a psychiatric hospital, but Roy refuses, determined to help her. In the local bar, townspeople gather to discuss the arrival of the mysterious girl. A villager claims to have spotted a mysterious figure reminiscent of a nun in the mountains, but she vanished when called out to. Roy takes the stranger to the same bar to ask for food and clothes. A woman who had feelings for the sheriff warns him to be cautious with the girl. Seeing her arrival right after the priest's suicide is no coincidence. Additionally, a toy car belonging to Albert, a shepherd in the mountains, is discovered, raising suspicions about his well-being. As tensions escalate, the villagers become more hostile toward the girl, suspecting her involvement in the unsettling events in the village. Unhappy with her roaming freely, they press Roy to send her to jail. Facing the challenge of ensuring her safety, Roy decides to confine her to a cell. Despite believing in her innocence, he must untangle the mystery, leading him to head to Mount Thistle. The officer investigates the shepherd's vacant house, noticing the absence of animals and weapons, suggesting that Albert and someone else likely ventured out for hunting. Unaware of the situation inside the house, where someone requires assistance, Roy descends the mountain, calming the locals before returning to the station. At the station, he encounters a bishop trying to rid the girl of evil using a crucifix. Her strong reaction to the cross seems to validate the clergyman's beliefs. Reluctant to accept such beliefs, Roy takes the girl to his home to shield her from the agitated villagers. After taking a few photos, he plans to locate the missing stranger, speculating that she may be suffering from amnesia. Though unable to speak or write, the girl draws a cross, hinting at what might have happened to her. The following morning, volunteer Martin arrives in the village to assist Erwin and his new nephew Albert, who tragically lost his parents in an avalanche. Martin, unaccustomed to mountain climbs, faces difficulty scaling the heights and struggles to adjust to the local cuisine. Meanwhile, a mysterious individual known as the Stranger tends to Roy, serving him coffee in bed and expressing sympathy upon learning about the sheriff's unfulfilled desire to be a husband. The Stranger replaces Durza's face with her own photo, conveying genuine feelings. The mute Albert notifies his uncle about a dangerous encounter with a wild animal attacking their goat. Erwin, armed with a gun, hastily intervenes, but the elusive creature manages to escape, leaving the livestock wounded. Martin, a former assistant to a city doctor, recognizes the sheep's suffering caused by a damaged respiratory artery. To alleviate its agony, he takes charge and euthanizes the goat by breaking its neck, an act Erwin cannot bring himself to do. Roy adamantly rejects the notion that the Stranger and Sen and Tuni are the same person, disregarding ideas of witches or other supernatural forces. While reviewing a 1950 newspaper clipping at the archive, despite the passage of 25 years, the girl's unchanged appearance deeply unsettles the sheriff. Nevertheless, he remains resolute in seeking a rational explanation. Leaving the Stranger with the mayor, Roy journeys to the valley to meet Commissioner Matter, who had connections at the time. It's revealed that the girl was identified as a gypsy, and after 3 people accused her of arson, she vanished without a trace. In the meantime, a Stranger constructs a human-shaped figure using chains and shoes, attracting the mayor's attention. However, preoccupied with work, the mayor shows no interest. Capitalizing on the moment, the bishop attacks the girl in an attempt to expel what he believes is the devil residing within her. He aims to end the vessel containing this supposed evil entity. The mayor intervenes just in time to shield the girl from the bishop's aggression, frightening her away. Seeking refuge, the Stranger heads to the local bar, yet a pregnant woman mistakes her for Senant Tuni. Feeling threatened, the pregnant woman uses bread with a drawn cross to ward off any potential aggression. Meanwhile, Martin, Erwin, and Albert, seeking relaxation, indulge in strong alcohol. Craving amusement, they decide to fashion a doll resembling Senant Tuni, using a broom, rags, and hay bales, believing it could come to life and fulfill the desires of its creator. Amidst their inebriation, Bwin shares a legend from 1953 about shepherds who supposedly summoned Senent Tuni. According to the tale, this entity not only cooked, but also brought happiness and pleasure to men. Pronouncing the spell and conducting the ritual, the trio attempts to summon Senent Tuni, and in their drunken delirium, conjures an image of a girl made of straw before them. Upon Roy's return to the village, he discovers that theirs has lost her child. Blaming the girl for this tragedy, there's a growing belief that she is either a witch or an embodiment of the devil. In the morning, the bishop manipulates the villagers, turning them against the girl, asserting that she embodies the devil and is responsible for the tragedy involving the baby. To bolster his claim, the clergyman presents an article and a photograph from 25 years ago, depicting a young gypsy woman resembling the girl. Startled, Albert wakes up to find a girl in their house, unaware that she's the same stranger who fled the village. Mistakenly assuming she's the Senent Tuni summoned the previous night, Albert is taken aback. Equally surprised, Martin and Erwin try to connect with the shy, wild, and cautious stranger. While attempting to befriend her, Martin discerns that the girl is genuinely real and proposes heading to the village to report her before the police arrive. Although initially agreeing, Bwin later notices the girl's odd behavior and lack of comprehension, leading to seducing her and taking her away, all while remaining oblivious to Albert witnessing the unfolding events. Meanwhile, Roy contacts the former sheriff and learns of the sheriff's passing due to a heart attack. Shortly after, Roy receives information from the city, indicating that Martin is a wanted criminal, accused of taking his girlfriend's life. In the midst of this revelation, Martin suggests to Erwin that they release the stranger so she can return to the village. However, Erwin opposes this notion. In response, Martin proposes that the girl should escape when Erwin is preoccupied. Noticing the girl's absence, Bowen pursues the couple, leaving Albert behind with a gun to guard the house. Fearing a return to the village, the girl attempts to flee, but Martin catches up to her, and they try to evade Erwin, who is in hot pursuit. Seizing an opportunity, Martin seizes the girl and rushes back to the shepherd's house. In a playful gesture, he startles Albert, who accidentally fires the gun, causing Erwin to hastily retreat up the mountain. Realizing they could both care for the girl, the men decide to keep her, despite the tumultuous events that transpired. As the sun sets, they gather around a crackling fire. Erwin, to everyone's surprise, discloses that he's Albert's real father. Berwin is thrilled by this revelation, but it leaves Albert feeling scared and unsure. He dashes to the barn, trying to figure out how to handle the unexpected situation. While the men continue to drink, they invite a girl into the house for a wild rendezvous involving 3 people. At one point, she tries to resist and ends up biting Martin's hand, but it doesn't change the situation for the better. Later, under the cover of night while the men are asleep, the girl manages to escape, armed with a knife to protect herself from the offenders. Roy jolts awake to a frantic knocking on the door. He discovers a terrified stranger seeking refuge, realizing he's her only hope for help. The sheriff decides to escort the girl to safety in another town. However, on their journey, villagers obstruct the road with a truck, causing Roy to have a collision. Despite the crash, the girl seizes the opportunity to flee. Meanwhile, the sheriff becomes a victim of a beating by the mayor and others, convinced the girl is a threat named Senent Tuni. Early morning, Albert urgently tries to rouse Wywin and Martin, wanting to show them a disturbing scene in the barn. They stumble upon gutted animal carcasses, a grim realization that the girl hiding nearby isn't just dangerous, but also exceedingly cruel. Unaware of her presence, Bowen sets off to track down the stranger while Martin, taking pity, secures the girl in a nearby structure, assuring her freedom once the shepherd departs to find her. Returning home, Roy spots a distinctive church symbol, a cross-shaped marking on the wall. Recalling the girl's drawing, he discerns their striking resemblance, understanding it's not a coincidence. Equipped with a revolver, the sheriff heads to the church, uncovering a hidden passage to the basement, the secret residence of the stranger. Meanwhile, Martin's condition worsens due to the bite, leading to a severe blood infection. Despite Biman's suggestion to seek medical aid in the village, Martin adamantly refuses, burdened by a terrible secret he confesses. Attempting to aid Martin, the shepherd asks Albert to bring a bottle of alcohol. Albert, heading to the shed where the girl is confined, fears for her safety. Upon his entry, she strikes him on the head in defense. While in the barn, Erwin spots the girl and endeavors to set it on fire after blocking the door, unaware that Albert is trapped inside. The stranger manages to escape through a hole in the roof, but Albert remains trapped in the blaze. Understanding his error, Bwin saves his son Albert, and in his final moments, addresses him as Dad for the first time before passing away. Distressed by the sight of the girl outside the window, Gowan impulsively attacks her, striking her with a stool. Meanwhile, Roy confronts the bishop and takes him into custody for the crimes he committed. The sheriff makes a crucial realization. The gypsy woman in a 25-year-old photograph was the mother of the girl held captive by the priest. It becomes clear that the bishop exploited the woman, resulting in the birth of their daughter. Moreover, the deaths of the 3 shepherds and the priests were orchestrated by the bishop to conceal his misdeeds. He was accountable for pushing the gypsy woman off a cliff and imprisoning his own daughter in the church basement. Recently, a girl living in isolation manages to escape when a priest brings her food. Upon recognizing the atrocities committed by the bishop, Roy apprehends him and arranges for his imprisonment. The young woman informs the sheriff about spotting another girl up on the mountain. Meanwhile, Owen captures the stranger, attempting to perform an exorcism by using a cross to threaten her. As Martin's health deteriorates, he safeguards the innocent victim, convinced she's just an ordinary person. He demands In release her, but when In refuses, Martin gets injured in the arm. Seeking vengeance, the girl, driven by revenge, grabs a knife and takes In's life. Sheriff Roy ascends the mountain and senses something eerie at the house. He encounters a girl who seems infatuated with him and shares tea. She guides him to the barn, revealing dolls made from the skins and bodies of Albert, Martin, and Erwin. The girl believes in the legend of the Senate Tanshi, hoping it could revive them. Roy is stunned to realize these events occurred 6 days before their first meeting. Albert, Martin, and Erwin had bid farewell to life over a week ago, and their truth will forever remain unknown. Furious and caught off guard, Roy tries to arrest the girl, but she flees in fear. Lost in thick fog, she accidentally falls off a cliff. As the sheriff descends, he discovers not just this girl but dozens of others who met a similar fate. Overwhelmed by guilt, Roy takes his own life. In the present, the police discover the skeleton of the same girl, revealing she was an ordinary person. Her life had been twisted by false rumors spread by the bishop to deceive the people.